We're telling the real truth that other artists are afraid to tell you.
Hey y'all, I'm AJ Reyes.
And I'm Timothy Dailey-Valdes.
And this is Can I Bother You? This is our first episode back since we released our first 5 episodes, so we're excited.
We are excited.
So many of you have reached out to us and told us that you're listening without us even having to ask. You proved it by referencing things that we speak about in the episode, so that's how I know you're not a liar.
Yeah, if you're faking it, you're really doing your homework.
Yeah, good. And honestly, if you are faking it and you can get away with it in that way, you deserve to be praised. Because, good on you. But for those of you who aren't faking, thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, thanks so much, y'all.
We're so happy to be here with you. Before we go on, I just want to remind you that if you are listening and you haven't found us on the social medias yet, we are out there. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Can I Bother You, and we are on Facebook at Can I Bother You Podcast. Okay, so today's episode, our first one back, we got our first request for advice, Timothy.
I'm so excited.
I'm so excited too. Okay, so y'all, our friend, Laura Osnes, she requested, our caller, but I guess it's not a call, our DMer, she slid into our DMs, y'all, doing it right over here. Anyway, hey Laura.
Hey girl.
She asked us to call her Laura to protect her identity, but I think that that's a trick. I assume that she is Laura Osnes of Broadway fame.
Mm-hmm. Star of screen. Small screen.
Yeah, small screen. As far as if Laura Osnes has been in a movie, I haven't seen it yet. If you don't know who Laura Osnes is, she won was it the early aughts when the reality competition series to cast Danny and Sandy in the revival of Grace on Broadway. I think that happened in the early aughts. It was called You're the One That I Want. I remember that much, and I remember watching it, and Laura Osnes won for Sandy, so she played Sandy on Broadway, and she has gone on to do many other things. She's done many other shows, including she played Cinderella in that revival, and oh gosh, what's the other one that I never remember the name of? Bandstand or something? Anyway, so that's who Laura Osnes is, and this person in their message asked to go by that, and I'm gonna assume that's because that's who it is. So shout out to our Broadway peeps. Hey. Laura says, how do you keep the motivation up through a supplemental job when you are truly an artiste and working on that as a side hustle? Artiste in all caps, so you know it's real. So, Timothy, how do you do it?
Well, that's a great question, Laura. Thank you for asking. I like to think of my day job as the side hustle in and of itself more than the other way around. My day job is what I do to support the art that I do, which is what I consider more my main work, I guess. Even though it's not the primary source of my income, I think of it as more of my main activity, or my main my primary. Did I already say primary?
I don't know, I'm not listening.
But I think of the art as the main productive output of my life. And the job is, as I've said before, I really love my job. I love the people I work with, and I really enjoy it. But it's what I do to support my writing, I guess. To eat and to support my life. But I think for first things first, I think that's the way I would advise someone to approach it. More like the art isn't the side hustle. The art is your main hustle. Though if you have a day job, your day job is the side hustle. Right?
Yeah, real talk. Something that always worked for me, and this depends on what your day job is, or your supplemental job. I only up until recently I'd been calling it day job, and I think in the past year or so I switched it to a survival job. Because I felt because I felt like it was just more accurate, you know. I liked day job because it was the traditional sense, the traditional word for an actor. Oh, my day job. But I like survival job because surviving is real hard, and it's I mean, honestly, even calling it a survival job is, like, not accurate, because you can't always survive off of what you get.
Oh, amen.
Anyway, another episode. So, depending on what your supplemental job is, Laura, is that what you called it? I already freaking forgot.
I think she said supplemental job.
Yeah, supplemental job. Oh, I remembered.
Well done.
That's the first thing I've remembered all week. It's only Monday. I forgot.
I didn't think of that either when you said it.
So, depending on what your supplemental job is, you might be able to do what I did back when I worked at Sonic. I worked at Sonic for 10 years, and the last, like, 7-ish years, I worked the mornings. So, I would open, and then I'd stay anywhere from... I'd get there, like, 5:30, 6:30 in the morning whenever we open, and then I'd be there until, in the last couple years, I started leaving at like 11 or 2, but the first few years, it was like 5:30 until 5 in the afternoon. But anyway, early in the morning, when we were slower, and all I was doing was like cleaning and occasionally taking out an order, I was a car hop. While I'm cleaning, I'd be working on, like, in my brain, and then jotting down notes on my phone. I'd just be thinking about whatever artistic endeavor I was currently working on. So, I'd be doing character work and then just taking notes. If I'm trying to write something, I would just take notes or on, like, whatever plot details or whatever dialogue might have come to mind. And doing that made the job easier because I was getting the job done. It's not like I wasn't working, but I also didn't have to think about how it was slowly killing me. I was able to think about what I was looking forward to. If your issue with the supplemental job and your lack of motivation is because after a long day, like I said in the beginning, I was going from like 5:30 until 5 in the afternoon, that's 12 and a half hours. No, that's a lie. It's 11 and a half hours. That's how math works. And Timothy was just over there agreeing with me.
I have a math-based learning disability. What?
Now I'm the jerk.
I didn't
Great.
mean it like that.
Anyway, I can't believe Timothy made this about him. So anyway, if you are working like a really long shift, or if your job just is very, I don't know, tedious, or even if it is physically exhausting, you might just be too tired after work. So if what you're asking is how do you find motivation after you've been exhausted physically, although honestly, all jobs are mentally draining, so I'm just going to assume that that's also included. Physically and mentally exhausted, how do you find the motivation? I would say that Timothy has the answer for you.
Oh boy. I'm not sure I do. I'm one of the least prolific writers I know. I guess what I'm saying is do as I say, not as I do. I'm not necessarily the best role model in terms of being an artiste. But I think a lot of it is finding ways to make your job work for you. So if it offers you time and free mental space to think about your art, that's great. There's no shame in utilizing your on-the-clock time if you have the kind of job where, like, maybe you're doing something more with your hands or like something that doesn't necessarily require all of your attention all of the time, right? That's definitely a good time to brainstorm. AJ, like you said, to write notes if you have access to your phone or a notepad or anything like that. Really, this is not my idea, but I read somewhere, I think it was in a playwriting book specifically, that if your art doesn't pay the bills, find a supplemental job that either gives you time or gives you the money required, like, so a substantial income to, like, work within the bounds of that, right? Or, well, not within the bounds of it. That's not what I mean. But basically, find a job, if you can, that gives you either time or money to write or to work, to be creative. I have a feeling I didn't actually answer your original question.
Me or Laura's?
You.
What was my original question?
Well, that's what I'm...
I said if you're like mentally and physically exhausted, how do you...
when you get home from work.
Yeah,
so I definitely didn't answer your question. Okay. So...
Well, I mean, to be fair, I was throwing you under the bus. So, like, in improv, they call that a fuck your buddy.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that was always fun. I mean, with experienced improvisers, because like that's when it's a fuck your buddy. If it's two people who don't know what they're doing, and one of them like says no or like only asks questions or something, they're not intentionally fucking their buddy. They're just bad at improv.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, that's definitely a very real challenge. I think that pretty much every artist who has to do non-art work for a living faces, for sure. So there's a number of different approaches. I think first of all, I keep saying first things first. No, but one thing that's important, I think, is to not beat yourself up if you do have a day where you can't. You just can't manage when you get home to work on a project or work on your art. I think you have to there's something to be said about being gentle with yourself. And I don't mean that in a way to where you completely let yourself off the motivation accountability hook, but I think it's just really important to take care of yourself and know when you need to rest. And this is sort of stuff we've touched on in previous episodes too. But for a lot of people, one thing that can help with that motivation is to schedule a certain amount of time every day, to say, I'm gonna sit down for 30 minutes or whatever it is, and I'm going to sketch, or I'm going to write, or I'm going to paint, or I'm going to, I'm going to look up calls for submissions or calls for auditions or things like that. I'm just going to take this certain set amount of time every day and use that to further my art or to work on my art or whatever it is. That's not for everybody, because sometimes that rigidity works against some people, but I think it's a good idea. I don't do it myself, and that's not because I don't want to, it's because I lack discipline. I'm just gonna say that right now. But I think it's a really good idea for people it works for.
Something that I do, I didn't start doing it intentionally anyway. And even present day, I don't do it intentionally, but I do it. I very much enjoy living by a schedule. I plan every second of my day, and it never fails. Every day I'm always behind schedule. But having the schedule still makes me feel better, because even if I do have to skip something, or if I do have to cut time back on something, I'm still doing it. I'm trying to think of an example. So today, so I go for a walk. Every Monday through Friday I go for a walk. Normally I was going for 50 minutes, 50, and then I started going for 60 minutes, a full hour. But today, I was filming a new video for my YouTube channel, and I ran over by probably an hour, and I was okay, well, I know we are recording more episodes for the podcast in a couple hours. I still need to do dinner, and I need to shower. I really want to go for my walk, and I don't want to skip it. So I was okay, I will do a 40-minute walk. It's 20 minutes less than I'd like, but it's 40 minutes more than I would if I didn't do it. So instead of beating myself up over not getting as much done as I wanted, I just did what I could. And I'm not saying that's easy to do or that I can do that all the time. But fortunately for me, that is what works. I schedule it all out, and then if I have to let something go, or if I have to cut back on it, I accept it, because it was part of my schedule, and I'm so used to my schedule having to change. It's almost it's in my schedule that I'll have to rearrange my schedule.
Right.
Yeah, I don't write that on the list, of course,
sure,
but I know that it's going to happen. And it's the consistency of that makes me feel better somehow. You said so much, and I should have been taking notes because I had thoughts. That's not me bashing you for talking. I know we started this podcast, but that doesn't mean you have to speak all the time. It's extra funny because if you've heard previous episodes, Timothy has talked about how I tell him he doesn't talk enough. So what I had asked you that you realized you hadn't actually answered was finding motivation when you get home from work. There it is. Yeah, because I would get home from Sonic and I'd be exhausted. Or I also used to work at Lucy in Disguise, and the hours weren't as long, and I was working inside at least with an AC, but I would be exhausted creatively from that. So I'd get home both from Sonic or from Lucy's, and I would just be completely wiped and not want to do anything. And yeah, it's important to be kind to yourself when you can't be an artiste. When you have to take a break from that, when you have to pause because of the supplemental job. There's no way around it. We have to learn how to forgive ourselves because, we have to make money. That's what the man has told us. So there's just going to be times when you can't do the artistic work you want to do, and there's really nothing to do except find a way to be okay with that.
Yeah. Well, and I think, too, a lot of it, to go back to scheduling, a lot of it is just about moving, like, shuffling things around. Like, I mean, obviously there are instances where, like, if you're not available at a specific time, you won't be able to do a thing. But I think the vast majority of things, there's, like, a way. You know what I mean? There's, like, a way to make it happen. It just might require, like, you know, moving pieces of your thing.
Yeah, but, like, what I'm talking about right now is just being tired. I mean, like, it's not that you don't have time. It's that you don't have the energy or the motivation.
Sure. But, I mean, if you can't do a thing... what I'm saying is, like, don't lose hope because you couldn't get to a thing today. Like,
okay, I see what you're saying
like,
now.
You come home from work on a particular day and you're exhausted. That doesn't mean, oh, that thing I was going to work on is gone forever and I have no hope of ever working on it again.
Yeah,
like, I'm just saying that it can be easy to get really discouraged, but there's often, this is again going back to what you were saying, AJ, there's often ways to, like, reschedule and make it work and like, work flexibility into your life script.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For you, AJ, I'm just curious. Is there a specific criteria you look for when you do have to look for supplemental income or a supplemental job that are directly tied to your work as an artiste? Are there certain things that you look for in a supplemental job that maybe someone else wouldn't?
As an actor, I have to be able to, like, take last minute auditions and stuff. Especially when I had an agent. I don't have an agent anymore, but when I did, I had to be ready to, like, go on anything that I might get sent out on. And so a really flexible schedule is good. A lot of people can do that, though, because, like, I have friends who work at Alamo. I worked at Alamo for a few months, and it wasn't for me, so I left. But I have a few friends who work in film, and they work at Alamo because they can easily get shifts covered and stuff, and switch with people when they need to, so, like, that's something that works for them. The reason I started doing Shipt was because grocery delivery, Shipt is a grocery delivery service, SHIPT. I'm sure people think I'm saying shit, so I have to, like, specify ship.
I wondered if that's why you spelled it out in the first episode.
Yeah, I'll probably spell it out every single time I say it on here, just in case.
Oh, also, while we're paused, I want to point out that the Alamo that AJ is referring to is Alamo Drafthouse, the movie theater.
Yeah. For anyone who... Actually, Alamo isn't just in Texas anymore.
Right.
But there's still plenty of people who don't know what it is. But anyway, the reason I started doing Shipt was because as an independent contractor and the way they work their schedules, I was able to make my own schedule, like, completely and freely. And so, like, that was the primary thing that I was looking for. But I don't want to feel like the advice that I'm giving here is get a better job, Laura.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I wasn't.
I didn't think you were. I just wanted it to, like, be clear that, like... especially because we don't know what Laura's supplemental job is.
But yeah, I guess when I look for a job, I like one that has, this is going to sound really bad, one that has, like, a lot of periods of downtime throughout the day where you can, like, think about other things. And this goes back to what I've already said, so I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record. A record is... But yeah, it doesn't need to be, like, sustained downtime throughout the day, but, like, if I can, like, either think about or be, like, writing notes, and then, like, you know, a phone call comes in or something happens that I need to address at work, then I'll go to that, and then I'll come back to what I was working on. I tend to, like, if I have choice in what job I have, I tend to pick jobs like that.
That was my first thought when you asked, like, what kind of jobs do you look for? And I'm thinking, with the exception of Shipt, usually I'm looking for a job that's going to pay me and hire me. Like, and I'm not even joking. Like, that's just what I'm just like, are you gonna pay me? Are you gonna hire me? Like, I'll work there. Because, I mean, it's hard to find a job. And also outside of fast food, because after Sonic, I'm like, I'm not going to work fast food anywhere else. Even because when I was doing Sonic, I was always with a second job. It was only the first few years. Again, worked there for 10. It was only the first, like, 2 or 3 when I only had that as my only job. Right. So the other, like, 7-ish years, I always had a minimum of 2. Sometimes I had 3 or more. So I guess really the only requirement was that I was like, is it not Sonic? I'll work there. Shipt is the first one that I, like, actively wanted to do. Oh, that's not fair. I worked at Barnes & Noble, and I wanted to work on the book floor. They hired me for the cafe, and I was like, that feels like food, but fine. But then I, like, actually enjoyed it, so... Yeah. And then eventually I did move to the book floor. But anyway, other than Barnes & Noble and Shipt. You know what? I'm a goddamn liar. None of this is accurate, Timothy. None of this is accurate. I worked in a costume shop.
I was gonna say,
I worked in a costume store.
Yeah.
I worked, What else have I done?
You worked at House of Torment?
Oh, House of Torment.
A haunted house. That I always feel weird saying, what do you say? Like a haunted house attraction? A haunted house show?
Oh my god, what do they call it?
Because if you just say, oh, I worked at a haunted house, it just makes it sound like you work at a house that happens to be haunted.
Yeah. That is the dream job, y'all. The people who work there, most of them are like really into it, and they go back every year. I did it 1 year, and I was like, okay, now that I know what it's like, I don't need to do it again. I had no voice until, Halloween. You know when Halloween is, October 31st. You probably know when Halloween is. And then I worked I think I worked the first 2 weekends of November. I think it's how long it runs, and then it stops. I didn't get my voice back I didn't really have my voice back until after the new year. It wasn't until January that, like, I could actually sing or speak normally again. So I'm never doing that again.
Yeah, that's rough.
The screaming is too much.
Do you mind if I ask a question?
No, go.
No,
I meant go away.
That sort of brings up an interesting point, though. Does it make a difference when you have a traditional job that's also an arts job? Do you know what I mean? Like when your primary or one of your primary occupations at like long-term, like go in time clock kind of situations is an arts-based job. You kind of hinted at, actually maybe I'm thinking of something you said in a previous episode when you were talking about working at Lucy's, but when you get home you're sort of like both artistically drained and like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like you have your own stuff of course, but then like you've just gotten home from working an arts job. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Like what is that? How do you navigate that?
So like while I was at Lucy's, I was also taking improv classes. Every Monday night I went to an improv class. Mm-hmm. And so like that was pretty helpful, honestly. And also I did a few student films while I worked at Lucy's, and I did another class or two where we made our own short films. Those are the things that I did, though. I didn't do anything like really my own personal stuff, you know?
Okay,
I had classes, and then I did other people's projects. Mm-hmm. I didn't do anything of my own at all. Mm-hmm. I don't think the entire time I worked there. But yeah, that was how... I'm trying to remember, I think that about sums it up. I think that's about all I did while I was there. Mm. But yeah, without any of that stuff, I don't think I would have done anything at all creative. Mm. Because seriously, it takes so much work, and especially because it's essentially every time you are working to give someone an outfit, it's a collaboration. So I was collaborating with new people every day. Uh-huh. And so trying to figure out what they like and like what they thought they wanted, and then helping them realize that that's not what they wanted. Uh-huh. And so like it was both being creative and then also like, not to simplify like psychology, but also like guiding people through their own thoughts and emotions, basically. Because like they don't know what they want, and there's a lot of people would go there and they were I'm high maintenance, so I don't mind calling other people high maintenance. There were very high maintenance people there sometimes, and so like it was just like everything was like life or death. And I'm like, I know you want to look good, and I want to help you look good. I want you to feel good about how you look. But you do know that this is 1 3-hour party, right? Like, and that it's not gonna matter. Like, in a year, you're gonna have another party you're doing this for. Like, maybe we just, like, bring it down a little bit and, like, recognize what is actually happening here. Mm-hmm. So, it was both being creative and then also trying to talk people down all the time.
Sure. So, AJ, what I'm wondering is how your work helping other people achieve their artistic visions for money affected how you approached work that you were more directly and personally and like voluntarily invested in. Do you know what I mean? How did the supplemental work that you did in the arts affect how you looked at your own work? If it did. It's okay if it didn't.
I think it's one of those things where like I don't think that I can answer you for sure, because that year I've mentioned it. Maybe I've never said it on the podcast before, but I've said it once or twice in the real world. That's the year I was 25 years old. I turned 25 December 2014. 25 is the year that I changed the most. 25 is when I learned a lot about myself, and I feel like, not that I'm saying I'm a healthy, like mentally healthy or stable adult now, but I'm certainly much more mentally healthy and stable. And like that's the year that my first great niece was born, and that's the year that I dated a guy who I like genuinely had feelings for. And so like between those two things and then just everyday life, I changed a lot that year. So I don't know how much of it was directly in how much of like the way I look at my art or the way I worked on my voluntary art, the art that I was choosing to do. I don't know how much of that changed because of Lucy's or how much of that changed just because I changed a lot that year anyway, you know? But I do know that now I think differently about my art than I did when I was like 20, that's for sure. I'm not a perfectionist anymore. I don't know that I ever really was, but I do know that I think, I mean, it's essentially the same thing. I just didn't use the word perfectionist. I needed everything to, like, be right and feel right. Now, that's still the case, but I can accept that if something is a little different than I anticipated, that doesn't mean it's not right. It just means that it's right in a different way. And honestly, it helped my character work a lot because now I can acknowledge, and also, and again, that year just in general, my own growth as a personal human affected my character work pretty heavily because I dealt with a lot of my own flaws, and as a person now, it helps me deal with my own flaws. Present day, I can think something, I don't usually say it, but I'll think something and I'm like, that's not a cool thought, that's not chill, how about you shut the fuck up and sit down? And like that's something that wouldn't have happened before. I've trailed away from the creativity, but in short, no.
Thank you for that very cogent and interesting answer to a very nebulous and confusing question. I deeply appreciate it, AJ.
I really like what you said at the beginning of this about thinking of the supplemental job as the side hustle. I think that that's like a fantastic way to think about it. And I've certainly never thought of it in those words or in that like sort of phrasing. But it definitely makes the most sense to me, and I think in the last couple years anyway, it's essentially how I have felt. Like, especially like with Shipped for sure. Oh my god, I just realized I've been doing Shipped for like 3 years. Oh my god, life happens so fast, y'all. Don't worry about it, I'll freak out when this is over. Yeah, like with Shipped, it really has been the side job because whenever I've been cast in anything this past year, I essentially like stop working, which is a mistake because even though I think, with the exception of one thing, my past 8 projects have all paid, which is fantastic, but none of them, of course, paid a living wage, which is, I mean, you know, that's just what I signed up for as an actor, jumping from project to project and then, you know, small theater. But I'm getting paid to act, which makes me feel great, but then I'm spending so much time on, you know, that because I want to do that, that then I don't make money shifting. And I'm like, oh yeah, I still need the money. But I really do just think of Shipped as the side hustle because I'm like, that's what I do when I'm like between acting gigs.
Yeah.
It's what I should do all the time. But now going into my new life after, I mean, I'm saying after COVID, but since we don't even know when this is going to be over, during COVID, then after COVID.
AJ, do you want to move to New Zealand?
I'm down. I mean, they won't let us in, but...
That's true.
But anyway, because like right now what I'm thinking, I think that I just need to go for it and just go after YouTube. It'll be a minute. There's not a lot of requirements, but there's hard requirements to get monetized, and even once you're monetized, there's no guarantee that you're going to make enough money to like survive at all. But since that's not different from my life anyway, since there's never been a guarantee that I'm going to have enough money to survive, I'm kind of like, how different is it really, AJ? So I'm thinking I'm just gonna go for it, and I'm just gonna try to be a full-time YouTuber. I'm hoping to be able to be monetized. If I can do it by February, I'll be happy. Oh yeah, that's another thing that I thought about earlier and I forgot to mention. When we were talking about scheduling, that's right, and how perhaps there's a way to like change your schedule up so that you can create time to be an artiste. Earlier when I was talking about scheduling and how I had essentially like accepted that rescheduling was part of my daily schedule. Another thing that is part of my schedule all the time is that I try to overguess things. So if like, and that's how I failed today with filming. That's how I ran over because I thought, oh, I'll need this exact amount of time, and then I needed longer. Normally I would think, okay, I think I'll probably need like 2 hours to film. I'll give myself 3.5. and I like hardcore pad it. And so like that's what I do that a lot, and then that way when I do lose time, I'm losing time, but I'm not really losing time because I accounted for it. But so like I was saying, hoping to get monetized in February. I'm saying that far in advance because I'm actually hoping that I can do it by January, but I'm like, I'll give myself an extra month. Honestly, I might not do it until like March or whatever month is after that. But
April.
How do you know that for sure? It always changes. But my true goal is January, so I'm giving myself until the end of February, knowing that it might not be until March or April. So it's like I make a schedule all the time, constantly, making lists of what I have to do, but I purposefully fuck it up so that when it gets fucked up, I was like prepared for it to fuck up.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that make sense?
It totally does. There's a certain amount of the process that's, you can think of it sort of as, okay, so I'm going to preface this with the caveat that I don't really understand what I'm about to talk about, but it's an analogy. So, you know, in like the dieting and working out worlds, neither of which I do, dear reader, like they talk about like you've got to like confuse your like digestive system, and you have to confuse your muscles. So like you do intermittent fasting where you're always changing everything up so your body never knows what's going to happen. Or like in muscle confusion, you're like working out different muscle groups or whatever, like just randomly. I'm probably misunderstanding how these things work, but for my analogy, that's how they work. Anyway, but like sometimes as an artist, you have to do that too. Like what you're talking about, AJ, where like you sort of trick yourself. Like you have to have kind of like a double think where you're holding two truths in your head at once, and like one of them is more true than the other, kind of.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a bit of that can help with your management of your work as an artist, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. I wish I had more specific examples, and maybe I'll think of some later, because I know I do it to myself a lot too. Not always with scheduling, but just with different artistic tasks and things.
What's your process for like when you're not feeling motivated to write in general?
You mean like when I'm going through like a whole, like more than one day, like a spell?
Yeah, do you like have something that pulls you out, or do you just kind of let it?
I think, and I'm going to try to make this as general, like not writing specific as possible to help Laura and the greatest number of people I can with my generous gift of knowledge to all of you.
What is it, Tim?
I just felt like I was being very like, oh, I'm Mother Teresa over here.
That's a really good
before
Mother
all the
Teresa
comments about how
impression.
problematic Mother Teresa was, I know. Okay. But I think one of the best things you can do as an artist if you're lacking motivation is to seek out art in your same field, right? So like if you're an actor, see plays if you can. I know right now that's dicey. See movies, you know, things like that. If you're a writer, read as much as you can. If you're an actor, read as many plays as you can. You know, whatever your medium is. I think if you seek out other people's work in your field, that can often be super recharging and inspirational. If you're lacking inspiration too, I understand that inspiration and motivation are two very different things, but I feel like they're of a piece.
They're like real close friends.
But yeah, I think that's step number one. Like if you're feeling burned out, or if you're feeling stuck or crashed or anything like that in your art, definitely one of the best things you can do is remind yourself why you got into it in the first place, right? Like what you love about the thing that you do and why you do it. I think that's step number one. But yeah, also like I've talked about before, taking time to rest is definitely helpful for me, and I think for most people. And like also making sure that you do maintain your life outside of both your supplemental work and your artistic work. I forgot how I began the sentence, so I don't know how to end it grammatically. But like AJ, like you were talking about with making time to walk and like things like that, like just make sure that you don't completely neglect your life outside of both your art and your quote unquote job. Right?
which is something that I've done most of my adult life. I just like forget to live my life because I get so focused on trying to make money and trying to be an actor.
Yeah.
And then this is not for this episode, but I just want to throw out there real quick that Laura, if you're running into the problem that I've had, so many commercial auditions are like, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm an actor. And they're like, okay, but other than that, and I'm like, I'm an actor. I'm trying to be a successful actor, and in order to do that, I have to keep acting. So like, I'm acting. And they're like, what are your interests outside of acting? And I'm like, reading about acting, like, listening to interviews from other actors, like. So if you've seen nearly half of the casting calls I've seen where they're like, we're looking for real people, I'm like, then what am I studying for? Like.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. Anyway, what did I ask you, Timothy? Oh yeah, honestly, and it was a real thing when I was a child, watching movies about like cheerleading competitions or like a dance team, or honestly there weren't very many about singers, but there were so many about dancing. Like they made me want to dance, they made me want to cheer, and so like it's the same now. Like when I see a play or if I watch a musical or something, I'm like, I want to do that. So yeah, you're totally right. That's like a really good way to like try to like spark something within yourself. Something that works for me that I honestly would not suggest for anyone else. I just wouldn't. But something that works for me is I set fires.
Oh man.
I'm kidding. The thing I just felt like when your face when I said I wouldn't suggest it for anyone else. Anyway, I set fires within myself. Ooh. Yeah, isn't that deep? But no, I'm actually pretty hard on myself. But like in a good way. Like I haven't done it in a way that I don't think anyway it's like actually harmed me mentally or emotionally, because I know like when to stop, but I also have a pretty high threshold, so I don't have to stop often. So I'm constantly in my head like, yo bitch, you know what you haven't done yet? And then I'm like just after myself all the time. That's how I get things done, but I would not suggest that for anyone else. I'm sure I'm not the only one in the world who would benefit from that, but I also think that maybe it's not a common way to do it, so I wouldn't suggest it.
Well, maybe people can sort of adapt it for their own style, right? Like, so if someone would benefit from what you're talking about, like, do that, but like maybe like sort of just tweak it a little and make it less
intense.
Yeah, like make it less like a drill sergeant and more like a motivational speaker pep talk kind of thing.
Yeah, that would probably work for other people.
Well, that's what I mean. Like people who
need
that.
Yeah. No, I had nothing to say to it, is all, because I'm like, yeah, no, that's a great idea. That's not what I want to do, but that's a great idea.
Well, and if you think about it, like in a certain way, it's. I'm sorry, there's a motorcycle or something outside.
Hold for the dumb bitch. Okay.
Now I'm just noticing all the traffic, and I'm like, Timothy, that's been there the whole time. Okay.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, that's kind of the sort of pep talk you give anyway. Like when you have to give someone else one.
Like the drill sergeant or the motivational speaker? I'm not crazy about the drill sergeant because that's not how I think of mine. But
yeah, I couldn't think of another.
Yeah, I can't think of a better way to phrase it.
Yeah, like tough love, I guess.
Okay, yeah.
Is that?
I mean, I don't like the word love, but I think it's closer than drill sergeant.
What I'm saying is like your self-talk, like your motivational voice in your head is very similar to the kind of pep talks that you give to other people.
I get what you mean now. Yeah. Is it? Well, because it's not, you mean in tone, because verbally in words, it's not. Unless we're thinking about different things. Because right now I'm thinking about how I'm constantly saying things like, whatever, nothing matters. Like, that's what I'm thinking of right now. Are you talking about something else?
I mean, it does have a kernel of that, but it's more like,
Because I'm like, you're the person I see and talk to the most, and I'm like, I know I don't talk like that to you because it's not right for you.
I guess it's not, it's like a gentler version of that, though. It's like, you know, I know you can do this, you're like a competent bad bitch, and like,
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm starting to understand what you're saying.
And like, you know, your feelings are valid, but you're being stupid.
Okay, that sounds like verbatim something I've probably said. Your feelings are valid, but you're being stupid. Yeah, that sounds about right. Because it's like, I will totally support you and also let you know that you're being stupid.
Yeah, it's like, I will support you when I'm mad that I have to do it.
Okay, yeah, see, that's super accurate, yeah.
Or like, I'm mad that you don't already get that you're, like, awesome. You stupid bitch.
It's because I don't want to have to, I shouldn't have to be saying nice things to people. Like, why do I have to go against who I am, you know? Like, it's not in my nature to say nice things, and the fact that you're making me do it right now is really selfish of you. That's kind of what it is. Yeah.
Anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is that your self-talk is like a more intense version of your other people talk.
Accurate. Yeah. So anyway, if you are out there and you benefit from tough love, try doing that to yourself, because seriously, that's what works best for me. Mm-hmm. Just constantly being like, hey, fucking do it, and then I do it, and I'm like, okay, you were right.
And I will say sometimes I need that too, and like if you're not around, like I'll often be like, okay, what would AJ say in this situation? And I do try, like, not always successfully because I'm not you. I could never hold a candle to you, but I do try to be like, you know, what has AJ taught you? What would AJ do? What would AJ say in this moment? And so if you ever need what our sainted theater teacher would call a come to Jesus moment, mm-hmm. You can ask yourself, what would AJ do?
WWAJD.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Laura, I hope that was helpful.
I really do hope we helped you, Laura. I know there was some rambling, there was some off-topicness. There were some tangents. Some horses got lost in some snowbanks.
Oh my god, are they okay?
They're fine now.
Oh.
They're back at the lodge drinking hot chocolate.
Oh well. I thought that we were going to have meat for the winter, but okay.
AJ Reyes. Pyromaniac and horse eater.
Oh god. I mean, I am who I am. Anyway, yes. I do hope that we were helpful, Laura. If you get even famouser out there on the Broadway, you mentioned us in your bio in the program.
Oh my gosh, that would be such an honor. And honestly, Laura, it's such an honor to have you as our first advice seeker. Thank you so much for writing in.
Yes, thank you. I couldn't decide if I was going to go with a joke about how, like, it's not really Laura, right? But then I was like, no, if we're just going to thank her for actually asking for advice. Thank you. We appreciate it.
We really do.
Yeah, if you are not Laura and you think that we gave decent advice, or at least enjoyed the conversation that this wonderful question has sparked for us, feel free to send your own questions and pleas for advice to bother us at canibotheryou.com. We love to help people, or you can slide into the DMs like Laura did. Hey.
And even if you are Laura, feel free to ask another question.
Yeah, for sure. Again, Laura, it's been a pleasure.
Laura, a sincere pleasure.
I don't know why he's always trying to one-up me.
Well, I was going to try to think of a word other than pleasure. Laura, a sincere delight.
Okay, well, on the social media, you can find me at AJ Reyes F13, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and also YouTube. Like I was talking about earlier, I make YouTube videos. You can, by the time that you hear this, the one that I filmed today will have been out for like 2 weeks, I think. So go find me and laugh with me, please. Or not, I really don't care. I care. Timothy, you talk.
It's just like Tinkerbell. He thrives on your claps.
Or your tears. They both work. Where can they find you, though?
Y'all can find me at TCJDV on Twitter and at Tomatillo88 on Instagram. I'm still working out some Facebook nonsense, whatever. It's a long story, but you can just search Timothy Dailey-Valdes on there and you'll find me there as well. Also, if you're enjoying the show, we would greatly appreciate it if you would rate our podcast on your podcatcher of choice. Also, if you could give us a kindly review, we would appreciate that as well. That would be very, very helpful, and we would be super grateful. Also, if you're a fan, if you're liking what you're hearing, feel free to subscribe on your app of choice. That way you will be privy to all of our future episodes, and you'll hear them as soon as they come out every Thursday. Also, we have a Ko-fi account, so if you would like to support us monetarily, that would mean so much to us, and it would be a great help in continuing to do what we're doing here and to make the show better and to allow us to eat.
Yes, please help. But honestly, you listening is almost help enough. Not quite, but almost.
Real talk, y'all, it means a lot to us. It really, really does.
Yeah. Again, our first episode back since we released the first 5, and seriously, thank you so much for all the kindness.
Yeah, it's been really gratifying and humbling to see all your kind thoughts and kind words about the show.
Yay! Okay. Well, we will talk to y'all soon. Timothy loves you.
I do.
I tolerate you.
He does.
More or less. Okay, bye.
Bye, y'all.